I'm Sophia Louisa Lee, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode of So Zoom In. Today is September 11th, 2021. It is the 20-year anniversary of 9/11. So there is, I believe, just an overall heaviness everywhere as we all reflect on what happened 20 years ago. So what got me thinking a few days ago, because of 9/11 and a lot of things that are happening right now globally, I started thinking of the masculine wound. So I reached out to Eric Rains. He is a healer. He's on social media. He has a website, unleashingnaturalhumanity.com. And I will be speaking with him. And he is coming in right now. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, very, very welcome. Thank you for having me on. This is going to be fun.
I saw your video last night and I loved it. I thought it was so great.
Awesome.
So thank you for doing that. And I
welcome.
I think it's those type of things that are so helpful in overall healing. So I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
So I wanted to say, okay, first of all, Eric Rains, welcome to So Zoom In. You are a healer. You inspire people, you help people, I believe, help them figure out who they are, how they can help manifest their lives in the moment of now. You have a website, was it unleashingnaturalhumanity.com?
Mm-hmm.
Humanity, I love that word because it's something that I think we all need to embrace, especially now more than ever. So when I saw a post of yours on Facebook, I was thinking about the masculine wound that goes within everyone. And when I saw your post, I thought, oh my God, I have to reach out to you. So thank you so much for meeting with me.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me on.
The masculine wound. You left me this incredible message that I really wanted you to kind of start this off with. Do you remember what you said?
I do.
Oh,
I definitely do. So one of the things about the masculine wounding is that it is one of the progenitor traumas that has created all kinds of issues on our planet. And our planet, we look at, like the past, 400 or 500 years of written history, women did not have a very good time. It was a lot of subjugation. There's absolutely no freedom whatsoever. And we look at this as the female has been wounded. Yes, the female has been wounded, but it would have never happened if it wasn't for this original trauma bonding, this trauma wounding to begin with. And that's one of the things that, toxic masculinity, it comes directly from that wounding, which is nothing more than insecurity and fear. And that insecurity and fear has led to some really, really uncomfortable things between men and women all throughout history. And we have to start focusing on all of it, not just, isolating into one specific point and only looking in that space, but we have to start looking at everything and start healing all of it too.
So what would you say? Okay, there's so much going on in the world right now. And I'm not going to get into all of it because we all know, we all feel.
We all know.
But if someone wants to start that healing, because I know there's the masculine, feminine within all of us. And I like to believe, because we all have a mother and a father, we all carry that wound within us. How can one start healing that wound just within self? How can someone get that journey started?
Oh yeah. So this is the question of all questions right here. First and foremost, you need to know where you're going. And like, we can't start a journey unless we have a destination, even if that destination is unknown. If we go on walkabout, we're going to find the destination, and the journey is the growth, the experience along the way. And this is one of the things that, you got a lot of people who they're questing, they're looking, but they don't even know where they're going. They're just kind of, with one paddle in their boat, just rowing themselves in circles. The bottom line is that we have to know where we're going, and you got to kind of put a blueprint out there of what you think the perfect version of yourself is, and I don't mean like physically. I'm talking about energetically, emotionally, mentally, which honestly, that starts to realign the physical body, and it starts to make the body beautiful anyway, once you start getting the internal space to align on that level. But it's almost like you want to find the perfect version of yourself, and then you want to observe them, like moments in our past, especially the ones that we look back on and we don't enjoy looking back on it because A, we acted wrong, and B, something happened to us, or, whatever it might be inside of that. We have to look back in those situations and then put that perfect version of us in there and say, well, what would they do? How would they respond to this? How would they be inside of compassion, inside of this incredibly trying space? And that's where we start getting an idea of what we want to be. It's not an easy process. You're going to have to really lay it out for yourself and not pull any punches and be brutally honest to the point that it hurts. And that right there, where it hurts, those are the wounds. That's the spaces that you need to go in there and start telling them, hey, you're not bad. You're just wounded and I love you. And let's go for a healing journey. And that's what starts to realign you with that, quote, perfect version of yourself. It creates a frequency. It creates an energy. And natural humanity, the reason why I am the founder of Unleashing Natural Humanity is because the natural human is absolutely phenomenally amazing. Like, we are magnificent, magnificent creatures, but what we are looking at is a species that has just been plagued with and riddled with so many different traumas, from not just like the individual ones, but like full-blown racial traumas. Like, we have been a very brutal society for a very long time, and there has been so much atrocity that has happened on the individual level and on the collective level as well. And so what we see today is a product of nothing more than people responding inside of their trauma. And it's looping and looping and looping into this space to where it gets so incredibly dense that people start breaking out of it. And that's the healing process, is just realizing it's all not okay. And we have to do something about it, even if it's just fixing ourselves.
Well, I like to think that's the first place to start, yourself. But I know there's so much fear and so much anger right now. And when someone, it seems to me like people don't really want to look at themselves even in the mirror. It's like they just want to, put on that facade, and just be angry at the man, and that kind of really bothers me because if we want to change it, we have to address it. But it seems like everything is being diverted to something else.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's exactly the process. Because like what's happening right now is the control systems are much, much more aware of all of these systems that we operate with internally. And that's why we see so much out there to give us a protagonist to fight against. And that focus right there, it's needed. We do need to know what is going on. We do need to know what is wrong. We can't put our heads in the sand. We have to be informed. But how we go about trying to fix this solution, this is the difference in everything, because we have the path of love and we have the path of fear. And the path of fear means that you have to fight something that's bad. The path of love means that either A, you make sure that you're perfectly okay from that system and you create your own, or B, you bring that love directly into the system and transmute it. And what I'm seeing right now is a bunch of people fighting. And I get all my information from the body. What I mean by this is as above, so below. And if the body has a specific process internally, it translates externally. And this understanding comes from my massage therapy and physical therapy and chiropractic background. Just trying to get the body to unlock. When I started figuring all of this stuff out, I could start to recognize the way that it all kind of fit together. There's a problem, but there's a reason the problem is there. It's either A, an injury, or B, it's emotions stuck inside of the body. And there's literally nothing else that's wrong with people. You're either injured or you've got emotions stuck inside of you that are blocking flow. And from that point right there, if we go in and we focus on either the injury or the trauma, and then we start looking at that injury like, hey, you're bad, that's the resonance that the injury picks up. And it never starts to understand differently. It starts to say, okay, well, I'm supposed to be this way. I'm bad. And it locks itself in. And so if you go into the space, especially if there's pain, no matter what type of pain, physical, emotional, or mental, and you go in and you treat that pain with a solution, which when we look at pain, the solution is not being in pain. So you create a resonance or a frequency that can create something that transcends pain. Like compassion, laughter, joy, excitement, love, gratitude. All of those things are very specific emotions and energies in the body that if you bring it into that space of trauma or injury, it picks up that resonance. And you can't have something traumatized holding on to compassion, because then it's automatically not trauma anymore, you know? And like that's the way that this works. And so if we look at that and we take that blueprint and we take the internal awareness and move it outside to what we're looking at, it's the same exact thing. Let's just look at the human collective as a physical body. And right now we have something in the physical body that is telling us that this is wrong, that this is, you know, it's bad, that, you know, you're traumatized, that you're wrecked, that all this bad stuff is happening. And well, if we keep on looking at it like that, it's the solution not being created. It's that same level that the problem was initially incepted upon, you know. And in order to transcend a problem, we have to transcend that level, and we have to go to a different space and then create the solution. And the solution, it fixes the problem. And it's not by putting the focus on the problem, it's by putting the focus on the solution and knowing exactly where the problem is. So that's kind of that in a nutshell.
Okay. I love that. Okay, so but we've had centuries of this trauma, of this wound. And I like to really feel like, well, I do feel like it is a very masculine wound, because it, you know, it encapsulates everyone. And I know we all have like the feminine wound, and as of late, and we've all, you know, there's been a lot of talk about the rebirth of the divine feminine and that coming back. But it seems like the more of that, there is a more awareness of this masculine wound.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
And so, but I was thinking, so if with everything being energy and frequency and finding the solution, is it going to take centuries to heal? No. Has it taken centuries to be so traumatized? Oh, I like that. Okay.
Well, you know, again, if we come from the blueprint of the body, one of my favorite things to do is take people back into their childhood wounding. And, you know, really have them sink inside of it and experience how awful it is. And once you really recognize, like, hey, I don't like this, I don't want to keep creating this, I'm done. That right there, you can start to bring in a frequency and a resonance inside of that space that transcends that trauma. And you start to, like, especially like if we go back into like abuse, childhood abuse, whether it whatever level it is, sexual, emotional, mental, physical, it does not matter. There are different levels of you know, interference and trauma that it'll lead you in different directions with each type of trauma. But regardless, it comes back down to the fact that something happened that you don't like, and you're carrying it with you. And so if you recognize that you're carrying this literal rock of dense energy that's trying to drag you down, and you turn it into something that's lifting you up, even though you have gone through that trauma, you now see it through the lens of compassion and love. Which allows you to expand outward, because like all this ancestral stuff that keeps getting passed down, like it's not just us, it's our parents, it's our grandparents, you know, and like they did the best that they could with what they had. And usually they did an absolute crap job of it, you know, but
right.
You know, regardless, like they wouldn't be doing the stuff that they put you through if it wasn't for the fact that they were hurt. You know, and like if they were happy, healthy, and well-adjusted, they'd be raising a happy, healthy, well-adjusted person too. And that's where we have to start really looking at it, because it's not about this damage that we're carrying. It's permanent. It's truly not. It's just a resonance. It's just a frequency, and frequency shifts like that. And if you shift it inside of you, you actually gain the solution for the problem, and then you can take it back up the ancestral line. And time and space means nothing in a quantum world, meaning that 5,000 years ago, if you have a direct line to an ancient trauma from a man or a woman in your lineage that echoed its way all the way back down, you can find your way all the way back to that. And it's still very dense and heavy energy that's dragging the planet down, but you have access to it. And then you can fix it, you can clean it, you can turn it into something beautiful and bright that lifts the planet. And this is how we save everybody. You know, it's not about fighting the control systems or storming Congress and hanging the bankers. It's about going in and finding why we even have the need to control, finding why we have the need to be so aggressively insidious with the way that we hurt each other. And this is where the solution is, and it's instantaneous. And it's something that I don't know how many people I've worked with now, like almost 10,000, over 10,000 probably. But each person who feels this wounding inside of themselves, and then instead of looking at it from their brain, but activates the body, the mind, and the spirit together to go inside of the trauma and truly transmute it, it's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. Like, they change the way they look right in front of you. Like,
Wow.
it's beautiful.
I wish something like this was taught in schools. That would be so great. I mean, to have everyone have access to this, to know that it exists, that would be amazing. But I
The
know
cat's out of the bag. Like, it's never going back. It's never going back in.
it's so amazing how there's such a resistance to
Well,
this.
it's because it's trauma. You know, trauma, it doesn't want to move. It wants to keep everything familiar and safe, because trauma, if you're inside of like a space where you stretch out and you get burnt or zapped, you're going to start making yourself contort into these weird ways so that you can fit inside of the spaces that don't hurt you. And, you know, like you want to keep it safe. You want to keep it comfortable. And as soon as you kind of go outside a little bit, ow, you know, and that's where people are at right now. They're being contorted into very odd thought programs, emotional patterns, and the way that they operate inside of reality, just because they don't want to hurt. And that's got nothing to do with the brain. That's got everything to do with spirit and body. And if we can go in and show people how to do this, then they're not going to hurt. And then all of a sudden, you know, like all those weird contortions are going to start,
Right.
they can spread out and find themselves, who they are, what they are.
Which is an exciting journey to really allow yourself that time to do it, to explore that. So it's interesting because I see us as individuals, but I also see us as a whole. You know, I see everyone on the planet as like one body.
As above, so below.
What's that?
As above, so below.
As above, so below. But so when you have one person working on their healing, their wounds, feminine, masculine, and it heals, does that start to heal the whole, the one as a whole?
Yes and no. Because what happens when somebody truly lets go of the trauma, it's literally like a rock. It's like a piece of metal that doesn't let energy flow through, and it's dragging you down in vibrational causality. It's incredibly dense energy, and then you're inside of a dense space. When somebody breaks free of that, our natural space is very, very bright, very open, very clean. I mean, truly magnificent. Natural humans are like, we're like the gods of our legends, you know? And when you start seeing somebody exhibiting that energy, starting to shine from that space where they were holding on to darkness and pain, and suddenly there's no darkness and pain there, light fills it. And it creates a resonance that, like, the auric field starts to actually brighten and lift with that. And anybody in close proximity, you know, like in the same room, or you know, like even just like they know that person, like they can actually feel this resonance. But free will is a pain in the butt. You know, so, you know, like you can shine this beautiful resonance and frequency at somebody all you want, but if all they're doing is focusing on their pain, they aren't even going to feel it. And that's what's really uncomfortable about the systems that we're living in right now, is because we can't force anybody to do this. I mean, look what's happening. We've got force happening everywhere, and people are losing it. You know, we have to inspire. We have to lead by example, and we have to show the pathway, because like right now, people are blind. They just don't know. And if you show them like, hey, here's the path, here's the current, if you just hop in and let it flow, look where it leads to. You know?
There's a lot of resistance, like I said, a lot of resistance, a lot of anger, a lot of pushback. You know, it almost seems like they want to drag you in with them to get that fight going.
Yeah. Well, they need it. Otherwise, there's no reflection. You know, and that's the thing. Like, if you're sending out a bunch of energy and you're not getting a return for it, you're just sending more and more and more out, and eventually you're just going to get burnt out and tired. And that's the way these trauma systems work. You need to have somebody reflect that anger back at you in order to make the explosion happen. And that's you know, they want to drag people into it. And when they see somebody not in fear, how dare you not be scared? How dare you?
Right.
You know, and it's like, well, how dare you tell me to be fearful? Like, I no. you know, and that's where it's at right now. You need that cycle, you need that reflection, and by not stepping inside of it, you're actually letting them burn out their energy on it, and they're going to have much less for the next time.
Yeah.
Which this is how we start getting rid of all this stuff, you know, and like that anger, that pushback, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse until everybody actually gets to the point where they're truly feeling it, and they're not just in their mind going rah, 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 but they actually feel this resonance and recognize they don't like it. And that's what we're looking for right now. And the only way that happens is with the duality, to show people how far away from what is possible they actually are by living it. And then when you have a living example in front of you, like, I don't care how much brain information you think you have, if you feel something internally that changes the way that you operate, the way that you see the world, the way that you act, the way that you feel,
Mhm.
there's no brain information that can interrupt that, because results are the only thing that matters. And what we have is a huge entrainment of the brain level
Mhm.
to keep us from ignoring, ignoring everything that's deeper, because each person has a soul, each person is directly connected to spirit, and everybody has access to these levels. It's just that we aren't using it. So
It's such a shame because
for
it's not
now,
hard. It's not hard to access it, right?
it's not. Well, it's the choice. And you also got to recognize there are generations and generations of people who did not want light. Like, they got traumatized into the space to where the only things that made them feel good were control and domination and taking, because it's a vampiristic system, and they get addicted to it, and they don't want to get out of it. And so we have to make it so it's not an option for them. We have to take away what they're taking, you know, take our power back, take our energy back, pull it back into that central focus to where we can create the solution. And then they're just on the outside dying off with the energy flow, you know, and it's up to them to choose from that space where they want to go. But I personally, like, it's really cold and callous when people hear this, when I say this, like, but it's just the way that I operate, because I understand how this works and how death happens and how it's not the end, and how I can literally talk to people who have died on the other side. I don't care if people die. I really don't. And if people die, it's their time, and they
Right.
need to learn that lesson. And some people, a lot of people, unfortunately, we're going to see not having good times coming through the next couple of years, physically, emotionally, mentally. And a lot of people are going to end up either checking out or just dying off from this, because A, they can't handle the energy, B, they can't be a part of this transformation because it's too much for them, and C, well, I don't know if there is a C. You know, but it's one of those things where there's a lot going on.
Right.
And the soul journey, the soul evolution, like the true master class, it takes lifetimes to appreciate. And so if you have to live this entire lifetime inside of fear and then die inside of fear, well, so be it.
Yeah,
That's
but
your
that's
path.
the lesson, right?
Mhm.
That's the person's lesson, which they still choose to have that lesson, which they could still choose to not be in fear.
They, any time. And that's the thing. It's like a light switch. As soon as you turn on the light, the darkness has no choice. Like, it has no choice. The darkness is only an absence of light. And as soon as you turn on that light, it's there.
Right.
And you know, me personally, I can track back multiple lifetimes of, you know, just warfare and destruction and chaos, and just really uncomfortable places to be inside of. Even in the moment, as I tune into it, that version of me felt it was correct.
Mhm.
um, I needed that. I
Right.
had to be fully immersed inside of darkness in order to truly appreciate light, which it all coalesces into, you know, this lifetime and the lifetimes that I'm going to move forward from here, because it's not about me, it's about us. And that's why we're all here. It's the collective experience. And we've been collectively too dark for too long. And the dark's losing control, and that's why, you know, boo, everything's going crazy.
It's so interesting that you say that because I work in a law office. I have a day job, so I kind of like feel like I anyway. So I was talking to someone, and he was telling me the dark is winning, and I look at him, and he's kind of smirking at me, and I'm like, really? You know, you really think the dark is winning, huh? And he was really in that mindset. You know, it's like, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do it my way, and this is how it's gonna be. And I'm like, no, I don't
No,
think so.
I
You know,
don't have to.
but if that's you, good for you. And
Yeah.
I found myself, one, I was kind of really taken aback that he said that. But two, I found myself sending him waves of love because I felt, wow, you need it, baby.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that right there, that
yeah.
right there.
And
And like we've got so many systems that have been set up that it teaches us in order for us to have a disagreement, we have to be in warfare. We have to be angry. We have to fight. Absolutely not. You can send absolute love and compassion to somebody while you're still putting up a very powerful boundary of no. Like,
right.
look, I love you, but no. Like,
And boundaries, that's something that people seem to have lost focus of,
mhm.
because it's like, how do people start giving themselves those boundaries again? It,
That's the question of all questions right there. So I always come back to the energy. I try to give people a concept that they can feel instead of trying to give brain information that they have to analyze. And one of my favorite things to do with just a simple energetic boundary is it's not trying to, set up a shield to keep stuff out. It's simply claiming your own space. And one of the easiest ways to do this is just kind of close your eyes and then you kind of feel outside of your body. And it's like if there's anything out there that's yours and it's not in here, it's like as you breathe in, you pull it in, even if it's millions of light years outside. What's mine is mine. And in that same frame, you just gently give back anything that's not yours. What's yours is yours. What's mine is mine. And what's yours is yours. And it's almost like you want to have fun with it, like, oh my goodness, thank you so much for holding on to that. Thank you. It's like, oh man, silly me, this is yours. I'm so sorry. And you start having a good time with it. And what it does is you'll physically start feeling a boundary around you.
right.
You're pulling yourself into a space to where all of you is condensed. And inside of that right there, you have a space that's yours. You understand where you stop and where reality begins outside of you. And that right there, that concept, that gives us a space to say, okay, well, I know where I am and I know where I'm not. What do I align with inside of that? And so you start going into the spaces of like, well, what would happen if somebody did this? Like, how would I feel around that? And you start working with the emotion, the energy, the feeling, but at the same time, you stay sovereign. It's like, hey, I don't have to do that actually. Like, no, absolutely not, no. And that's where it starts to come in, and it takes practice. It's not an easy thing to do, especially if you're a people pleaser, or you bend over backwards for other people to the detriment of yourself, to the point it causes resentment, which is where that always leads. But start small. Like, hey, can you grab that for me? Actually, no, I can't. And then walk out the room. Like little small things, something that doesn't really matter in the long run, and build up the habit of saying no and putting your opinion out there. It's like, well, this is how I feel about it, and that's why I'm not going to do it. Love you. And just practice. And the more you practice, the more those neural pathways open up inside of the body. And with the neuroplasticity, it gets easier. And the easier it gets, eventually you'll run into something much bigger that you won't even have the trauma reactions from. You'll immediately step into a space of love and compassion and no.
Right. That's, yeah, I like that. That sounds okay. So that, when you were talking about that, it made me see women, women shifting, claiming their sovereignty, which is, it's been a process for a lot of women. But I want to go back to men, how, because I know a lot of men. I remember a long time ago, a man said, I was kind of dating at the time. He said, Sophia, it's hard being a man. I'm like, well, what do you mean? He goes, sometimes I just don't know what my role is. It's like, am I supposed to do this or am I supposed to do that? And he goes, you guys being women, you're really fucking it up for me. I'm like, what? It's like, okay, so dynamics change, but how does a man know what their role is? I guess this goes for women too. It's like, what is my role? What is my purpose? But is there a difference? Is there?
Yes. So when I tune in energetically to the essence of divine male and divine female, it reminds me of sunlight and a rose. The male energy is very expansive. We create a field that anything inside of it, it is affected by that field. And if we're shining from an incredibly bright space, everything is safe. It's able to evolve. It's able to grow. And like, honestly, our sun wouldn't have a purpose if it wasn't for the fact that there are beautiful things that it can help bring to life. And that's the sacred male aspect. It's the protective peacekeeper. It's the space of, this is my space and I share it freely. And anything inside of this is able to grow in innocence, in beauty, in joy. And the rose aspect of it, it's something that it takes that energy and it becomes so much more, so much more. You know, sunlight's beautiful and whatnot, but like, have you ever actually sat with a rose and like truly felt the essence of what's happening there? How it takes something that is intangible, the sunlight that's just shining down, the water in the earth, the soil, and then it turns it into the pinnacle of Fibonacci beauty. And that right there is something that the divine feminine aspect, it's not supposed to do anything other than exist inside of its own beauty, its own space of growth, its own nurturing. And then we share these energies together. And what I see is it's like a black sun, you know, it's like a space that it doesn't give, it takes. And it's like a black hole that's constantly sucking in. And then you have all of these beautiful roses that could grow into infinite amazing potentials. And it's sucking the life out of it. And you'll find some roses start creating their own light. You know, they'll start stepping into a space of, hey, this is my space and I'm just going to do it for myself, which is needed, because it gives an example. It shows other roses like, hey, you don't actually have to have the sun in order to do this. But at the same time, what we're doing is not co-creating. And watching that rose inside of its own light, it's beautiful, it's powerful. It's something that the more that they do it inside of that space, the stronger it's going to get. But it's missing everything from the sacred male side. That light is almost like it's a facsimile of what they know is supposed to be there. And this is how we end up having this giant imbalance here. And it all comes down to recognizing that we have to help each other heal. And it's not about me doing this for myself and then you doing it for yourself. It's about me saying, hey, so this is how I feel about this here. And this is what I don't like feeling about it. And this is what the situation does. How can we come to some resolution? How can we find a space inside of this to where you're healthy, I'm healthy, you're happy, I'm happy, and we can help each other? And that's the reunification. And there's just so much trauma bonding that we see inside of the dark shadows, even if there is light starting to break through and shine through, but we have these codependent hooks that are embedded into each other. And really, it's not about fighting each other and being as independent as we possibly can. It's about recognizing that we just want to feel good. And inside of that space of feeling good, of recognizing that, hey, like, as I'm with this partner, this person, my family member, my loved one, my friend, whoever it might be, I'm here to just love. That's all I'm here for. And if I can't love, then there's something that's inside of me that's saying no, and I have to go in there and address that. And if I have your help, it's going to be way faster for me. It's going to be way easier for me, because then you can bring that beautiful feminine energy in, that softness, that tenderness that goes right into those spaces where we're like, man up, pussy, rawr, you know, and like all of those sacred male traits that are just absolutely turned over on their head. And those spaces are where we need you. You know, it's where the unification starts to happen. That's where the insecurity, because insecurity is the biggest one for the sacred male wounding. It's where the insecurity starts to fill. It's where we can hold, it's like a yin yang, you know, it's like you've got a little bit of each other inside of those spaces, but if that space is empty, you don't have access to the other side. And me personally, I try to be as feminine as I can, because I fought my whole entire life, and and not just like mentally, like I was literally fighting people my entire life, until I was about maybe 20, 24 or 25, about a decade ago now, and by being able to step into that space of insecurity inside of myself, inside of that space where the anger erupted from the insecurity, from that, that combat, that warfare, uh, to be able to hold on to something truly feminine and beautiful, by exploring my wounds, it literally balances out. And as you go in and you start to let go of those spaces that, for women, it's not insecurity. It's a, oh God, how do I even explain this without pissing you guys off?
Oh, just go for it.
Well, it's more about it's working inside of a system where you don't have control, yet you can lead, you can guide, you can manipulate. And there's a twisting around that sacred male wounding, that the insecurity is what allows you to manipulate and lead. And it goes into that space to where we have all kinds of stuff that comes out in the toxic female and energy there. And by going into all of these spaces, to go in and truly hold space with that and recognize, like, this is not a feeling I wish to create anymore, and letting it go, suddenly you have sacred male energy that comes and fills that space too. And the roles start to show themselves. Like when you truly let go of the pain, when you truly let go of the trauma, and you allow yourself to heal and bathe inside of something that feels beautiful and pure and tender and loving, the role just steps out. Like, I will absolutely destroy anybody that messes with my loved ones. I will step up, no problem. I have no problem with that. They do. Like, I don't. I've been doing this for such a long time. I will mess somebody up if you attack my family. I have no problem with that, because I understand the way that this works. You need to know, and that's the only know that you understand right there.
Right.
Does it mean that that has to happen all the time? Absolutely not. But that's not my only role. My role is to make sure that the feminine in my life feels nurtured, feels loved, feels like they have all the sunlight that they need in order to grow beautifully. And that's where I'm at. That's my role. I don't know what the feminine role is. I really don't. But I do know that when I have expressed to me the feelings of not just love, but like an acceptance, a feeling of I recognize you, I see you, I understand you, and I love you. Like that feeling right there, it makes me want to shine brighter. It makes me want to return more. And it creates this beautiful feedback loop where we meet in the middle, but we come from our own spaces with what we understand. And then we do nothing but give the best to each other, no matter what that is. And no matter what that looks like, despite the fact that, we've got all these roles in society that tells us that we have to do this, this, and that. It's wherever you want to go is the role that you're supposed to be in. I'm a fighter, so I protect people, and that's the role that I feel guided into from that space. But I don't have to protect people inside of warfare, and that was actually a really big aha understanding for me, is like I can be perfectly inside of love while I'm physically defending myself. Sad that I have to do it to begin with, but
What was
I
what was
don't
the
need it.
shift for you? What happened that made you realize that, or begin to realize that?
Oh man. So I got into martial arts when I was 5 because they thought I had ADHD, but I'm autistic. It's like it's a low level autism, but I'm definitely autistic. And so when they put me into martial arts, it was specifically just to give me something to do so that I could calm down and order my thoughts and my body, and kind of get everything in alignment right there. And I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was one of my favorite things ever. And I got my black belt when I was 13. I was teaching people by the time I was 16. 3 years I was an instructor before I was even 16. And it was something that immediately, like as soon as I left California and I went into Reno, I gravitated right towards it. And I found the Lions Club, or the Lions Den. Ken Shamrock, he was he opened that up over there, and we just go after it, go after it, and we beat the living crap out of each other. And I thought it was great. I really did. And it was actually, well, because I also thought I was at the pinnacle of fitness too. And it was my buddy, he told me, he says, so you got to come take this hot yoga class, man. And I was like, psh, yoga, dumb. like there's nothing more physically taxing than getting in the octagon and beating the crap out of somebody for 3 5-minute rounds. Like there's nothing more than that, you know. And like he was telling me, like, you got to come to this hot yoga class. And it was almost 3 months. And then he's like, look, I bought you a spot for the class. You either owe me $15 or you're coming. And I was like, all right, fine. And I go, and the lady who was walking us through this, I walk in and I see this 72, 73-year-old lady sitting there. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be so boring. And 15 minutes into that class, I was trying not to die. Like, and I mean, she's sitting there talking like we are while she's holding these poses. And like, and I had to step back from my ego and say, well, there's obviously something that I'm not very good at here. And so I started doing yoga, and I started to pay more attention to the internal landscape. Mm-hmm. And when you're aware of the inner landscape, mm-hmm. It's very, very hard to go with the program. It's very, very hard to just go on autopilot and get on with your day. And so when I found myself inside of that space where I used to cultivate an incredible aggression, and I would have these daydreams about violence, and I was feeding into it a lot, you know. And when I started to really recognize the internal landscape, and I started to explore outwards with different understandings and different knowings in the body, I started to recognize I don't like feeling that. Like, I don't like feeling that. And the reason why I did like feeling that was because when I was younger, you know, there was a lot of trauma that I'd gone through. And that trauma led me to being so insecure and so unsure of myself that when I found that expression of the martial art and being able to stand up for myself and being able to defend myself, it made me feel strong. It made me feel safe. And it was all based on insecurity. And so when I started like really diving down into that and starting to release those insecurities and getting to a space to where I felt comfortable with myself and not having, you know, to distract myself, and, you know, like when I get a good look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, not doing that. Like, you know, I started to really dive into it, and I recognized I did not like that feeling at all. It was something that it was painful. It was a painful sensation, but you know, you get punched in the face and like you're not really paying attention to the inside. And that led to a whole entire disillusion with the martial arts world. And I still absolutely love it, but I mostly do like Tai Chi and Qigong more than anything. I don't train anymore. I do, you know, a lot of yoga, and I keep my body in physical shape so that I can do martial arts if I need to, but I don't engage in that level anymore because it's about me. It's not about protecting me anymore. It's about cultivating me. And that aggression, that space, that willingness to do violence, it's still there. I have no problem with it whatsoever. I really don't, but I'll never be the aggressor, ever. And I'll be the first one to try to talk my way out of it. But if it comes down to it, I'm prepared because I've lived that life. I've understood it so long, so well, that I don't have a problem bringing light into that space, because light needs to go into warfare. And we need people who can stand up as a peaceful protector, you know, the warrior priest, the one who can heal as well as harm. And that's the duality that we're in right now, where we have to be able to help ourselves on this level. There's the energy world. You can't ever fight the darkness because it will only overtake. It's like that bouncing back and forth until it builds up and it gets stronger and it takes over. But physically, like we don't operate on that level. Like, it's not an energetic confluence. It's this universe of that person right there in this universe of that person right there, and now they're conflicting. And if this person's trying to kill this person, I don't care how much they shine love and light at them, like they're gonna die, you know. And you have to be able to take care of yourself on these levels. I'm working towards a world where we can find the reason for that and go in there and fix that. And that's, you know, that's the genetic trauma. That's everything that's happening on our planet. And
Yeah.
it's all about stepping into a space to where we're not scared, no
Right.
matter what.
Well,
You
acknowledge-
face it with joy, you know, like a tiger. Come whatever may, I will face it fiercely and I will face it strong.
yeah, claim your sovereignty. Now,
Mhm.
how did you get your website started? What inspired you to start doing that?
Oh man.
I feel like I can-
So my first understanding of the energy world, it was my own internal exploration, and I started holding on to feelings and I made them stronger and stronger and stronger until I started downloading information.
Nice.
And it was like my own internal awareness got so powerful that I was able to expand outwards, and there's information out there.
Mhm.
And I had this whole, it was like 7 or 8 months where I was trying to translate my chakra system into clear golden light instead of the colors. Because you know the sunlight, it's got every single color inside of it plus everything else.
Mhm.
You know, because visible light, it's like this much compared to the massive spectrum of light and electromagnetic energy.
Uh-huh.
So I was trying to translate into that right there. And what ended up happening, it was February 29th, I believe. I'd have to look at my school schedule. I was going to massage school at the time, and it was the day before our powerful presentation where we had to actually put the presentation together and talk. And that night, I I let go of all the color, and I truly released. And then it was almost like the sunlight came back in. It's like I fully let go of everything, and then the fullness of it came in, and it exploded my heart space in a way that I've never, even to this day, like I still haven't felt anything that intense. But it was like all my internal sensations exploded out of my skin all the way out. Like it was about a 50-foot bubble, up, down, left, right. So I mean, it was like 100 feet, and I could feel the bugs crawling in the dirt underneath me. I could feel the currents of the air outside of the house. And like these awarenesses all happened at the same time. I became aware of something talking inside of my head that wasn't me. And so I started going after that thing. And it was like this really weird thing. It kind of clicked inside of my head when the initial heart space activation happened. And then it slid further and further back into my head. And it took about maybe 15, 20 seconds to get all the way back. But what happened was my own internal dialogue, my own internal voice, it started getting angrier and more distorted until I had like a full blown rage demon just screaming at me inside of my head. And I'm just like, what is going on here? You know, and at the same time, it started to hurt really, really bad. And by the time it got back here, it felt like I had like an iron nail just getting pounded into the back of my head.
Uh-huh.
And that was my first awareness of the parasitic construct, the implantation systems that try to keep people blocked inside of density. And I got rid of it, and immediately I felt way, way better. My mind was so calm and so clear, and my body was so pain free, and I literally felt like I was floating. Um, and then I went out. I went to school the next day, and I went to honestly, I thought I was crazy. Like I was like, well, I got to go to the nut house, man. I just had like demons yelling inside my head, you know, but my body felt so good and I felt so powerful. And I literally had this bubble of awareness around me that I could close my eyes and point to people. I could, you know, have them move and I could tell them what they were doing with my eyes closed. And I couldn't deny the results of what happened, even though I still thought I was crazy. And I started recognizing there's so many of these dark spaces inside of people, outside of people, connected to them. And I'm like, oh my God, the demons are attacking humanity. We gotta fight. We gotta fight. And so I started. And this is after I let go of my martial arts too, you know, like, so it was one of those things that I immediately went into warfare. And I don't care how pretty I tried to make it. It was all bright golden sunlight and beautiful, you know, colors and whatnot. But it was warfare, and I was attacking. I was blowing things up. I was trying to kill stuff. I was, you know, doing all this really, really aggressive behavior cloaked in light. And well, it got to the point to where things just kind of further down the line, like it all came to a head, and I figured out, you know, how to go in that. But the journey that led me to this is I'd worked on maybe about like 15 or 20 people, and I had like straight up miraculous results. Like able to pull pain out of people's body. You know, it was really crazy trying to explore this. And then I got called to Mount Shasta for like almost 2 years, and I finally ended up going. And it was a conference. They had energy workers, they had secret space program people, all kinds of stuff that was showing up there. And I remember seeing the conference, and like I wanted to go to Mount Shasta. I didn't have enough money, so I got a hold of the guy who was putting on the conference and said, "Hey, do you have any room for more volunteers?" And he's like, "No, I don't. Sorry, we got all those spots filled." And I was like, "Well, hey, could I trade? I'm a massage therapist. I'll throw you on the table, 4 or 5 hours, and we'll just break it up." And he says, "Well, I actually need somebody to head up the massage therapy side of this. Could you do that for me?" I was like, "Heck yeah, man!" And so I go to this Mount Shasta Secret Space Program conference, meet a bunch of amazing people, and on the first day, it was crazy because I hear this guy talking about these invisible implants that get stuck inside of people that they'll talk in their internal voice. They'll tell them to do kind of weird stuff, and I was like, huh? And I kind of just like pushed my way over into the conversation. I was like, "Hey, I couldn't help but overhear what you were talking about. I know how to take those out." And he looks at me and he says, "Bullshit." And I was like, "No, I'm not joking, man. I know how to take it out." And he says, "Bullshit. There's not a single human on the planet who knows how to do this." And I said, "Okay, well, I'm not going to try to argue with you. I will show you." And he says, "Yeah, you need to show me. Once we're done with the speaker thing, I'll come find you." I was like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm one of the speakers." And then that was when I realized, like, oh, like, okay, all right, so I better do a good job then. And I get this guy on my table, and I worked on him, and it wasn't that long. It was only about 10 minutes, maybe 15. And when I'm done, like I have my eyes closed the whole time as I'm doing this, and it feels like like there's things that I can grab a hold of and pull out of people, and so like it's a lot easier when my eyes are closed. And I get done and I open my eyes, and he's just leaking, just tears, and he just sat there and he didn't talk for almost 10 minutes.
Wow.
And I was starting to get uncomfortable and nervous, and I was like, "Well, what's going on, man?" And he kind of shakes himself and he looks at me and he goes, "You didn't get everything, but we didn't know that what you were doing was even possible on this plane right now. I'm going to make you famous. I'm going to tell everybody about you." And he did. And I ended up working on like 50, 60 people that weekend. And it was one of the most amazing, explosive growths of energy I've ever seen in my life. And one of the other speakers there, his name was Ted Marr, and he's got a radio show in Seattle. And I worked on him, and he was telling me, he's like, I like when I do my psychic work, I have my false voice and I have my true voice, and I have to feel which one is correct, and then I choose the truth. I don't have my false voice anymore. Eric, I got to get you on my radio show. And so he got me on that the next Friday. It was Friday, Saturday, and the Sunday that we were there at Mount Shasta. And then he got me on a show the next Friday. Wow. And 500 people got a hold of me. Like, I mean, it was insane. It was insane how many people came through to get work done. And I couldn't do it. Like, I couldn't manually schedule this. I couldn't do any of that. And so I had a lady who ended up taking care of all of that for me. And like, we ended up just kind of splitting ways down at the end, and I needed a place for people to go to. And so like somebody was telling me like, "Hey, you can put an online scheduler, and you can put your blog up and like all kinds of different stuff." And so that was the beginning of my website. And it was literally just because I couldn't handle the inflow of so many people.
Wonderful.
And it just kept on going. It got bigger, it got faster, it got stronger. I started to understand a lot more. And for the first 2.5 years, I was doing this work for people. They would show up, I'd light up, I'd do all the energy work, and then they go off on their way feeling amazing. And I started recognizing inside of all of that I was doing them a massive disservice because I wasn't showing them how to activate the way that I do. And so that's what I started doing, is showing people how to internally activate the chi, tie it in with light, bring emotion into it, and then start moving it through their physical bodies to find the places that are stuck, that are locked up, that hold on to pain. And that's what I do now, is I show people how to do this for themselves. And if they can't do it, if it's too heavy, if it's too strong, then I step in. But it's all about showing people how to activate. And that's how Unleashing Natural Humanity was born.
Well, and it's time for people to start activating.
Yeah.
So when you help someone get rid of a parasite, an energetic parasite, or something that needs to be gone, do you transmute it into something else, or how, when it's out of the body, where does it go? Does it?
So before I started to understand the emotional component with everything, it was literally just incredible amounts of light. Like it would feel like a vibrating buzz inside of me that was illuminated. And then I would move that and I would grab a hold of things and then I would toss them up into the light. And one of the things that I would do is, if like they wouldn't go into the light, is I would hold them there and force them into that space until they like dissolved into like glitter sparkles. And I was literally destroying things.
Transmuting things.
No,
Destroy.
nope.
Absolutely.
Destroying, actually
Wow.
destroying, like actually destroying.
Wow.
And yeah, well, I mean, it's not comfortable to have to actually look at what I was doing. Like I was the etheric assassin. I was running around killing things. Like that's what I was doing. And just because they're stuck in the darkness and they don't know any different, it's not their fault that they're there. And all they need to know is what the difference is. So like I was saying, it all kind of culminated about 3 years down the road from the initial activation, to where I'd been fighting so much that they started to look at me as a major threat, and they did everything in their power to take me out. And one night they did, and I lost my war. I lost my war miserably. But I mean, by that point in time, I mean, it was like I had full blown PTSD. I was always on guard. I was always like, oh man, if I go to sleep, they're gonna get me, you know. And it's like I'm gonna stay awake for as long as I can. And
Yeah.
you stay awake for 3 days, and you start going crazy anyway, you know. And that night, it was really uncomfortable, and I recognize it now. But I was very anxious. I was very nervous, and I just did not feel correct. And I was like, all right, screw it. I'm just going to go to sleep and I'm just going to wake up. I'll deal with all of this tomorrow. And about 10:30, I closed my eyes. And about 12:30, I'm still sitting there behind my closed eyes, wide awake. I was like, all right, whatever. And I got up and I turned on Netflix or Hulu or something like that. And I was trying to find something to watch when I felt this of air next to me.
Yeah.
Oh crap. You know. And so I'm sitting there looking out of the corner of my eye where this was, and I see this big white shape, and I bring it more into focus, and I make eye contact with this giant white reptile face, and its chin was right where my butt was, where I was sitting on the bed, and the top of its head was about, I don't know, maybe a foot higher than mine. I mean, it was massive. And I was like, okay, I guess we're doing that then. I'm going to pretend I don't know it's here. I'm going to build up light in the background, and I'm going to boom, blow it up. I'm always strong enough. I've got this. And then I lit up and I exploded outward. There was billions, trillions of them completely and totally surrounding me everywhere. And I lit up and I exploded my light out, and they crushed me back in. And here I am, normally used to feeling, at least, you know, on just every, the status quo was a bubble around me that I could feel maybe 2 or 3 feet outside of me. Suddenly I'm smashed this far inside of my skin, and I can't feel anything outside of it. And I said, oh, I can always do this. I'm always strong enough. Oh God. And I lit up and I did it again. I tried to explode out, and then they crushed me in even further. And so like it went on. It was like each time I would lose ground, I would be weaker. And it got to the point to where I got smushed in and smushed in and smushed in until I physically felt like I was trying to keep my bubble open, and I was stuck inside of my heart space, inside of a bubble about that big. And then the next big one, like I tried to push out, and then I felt it. It was like this wave of darkness just came rolling at me, and it knocked me out of my body. And so here I am floating around in this darkness, completely unattached to everything. And I'm like, oh shit, I lost. They're going to eat me. Like it's over. Like I'm done. And I look, and here's this giant universe of darkness. And it's like these ripples, these waves that it like pulses. And then it came, and I see this wave coming at me, and I'm just like, oh God, it's the end. Wait a second. What's going on here? They're like flowing through me. Like they can't even see me. And so I'm sitting there like, well, I thought that this was like for the soul. I thought they were eating the soul. I thought like, wait a second, I'm missing something. And so I start following where they're going and I look and I see almost like this singularity. It was like a point, very, very tiny that they were all falling into. And it felt like a universe on the outside of darkness. It was just so incredibly massive, but it's like they got more and more condensed and more hard until it was like matter condensing in on itself. It's like if we took a room full of smoke and then smashed all the smoke into a singular point and turned it into matter. That's what it felt like. But they were falling into that. And then I couldn't see what was happening. And so I'm up on the edge of this. I'm like trying to look in. I'm like, what's going on in there? And I'm perfectly safe. They have no clue where I'm at. They can't see me. I'm feeling safe. I'm not feeling PTSD because my body isn't with me here. You know, I'm perfectly spirit right now. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, like let's just see what's going on. I'm safe out here, but I'm not anywhere. You know, I don't have my body. I don't know where I'm at. Like I have no choice. I've got to go in. I have to see.
Right.
And so I allowed myself to fall into the current and then it just kind of sucked me in and then right back in my body, right here, right there where I felt myself. And there I am getting molested as a kid. And so I'm sitting there looking at this and I'm trying to hold on to this dichotomy that I've got inside of me because I had, you know, I am capable of miraculous work. I am capable of truly amazing things and being brighter than just about anybody that I've come into contact with. And yet here I am with all these people telling me how amazing I am and how amazing I feel, looking at this darkness inside of me. I'm like, no, I'm a beautiful being of light. This isn't true. But it was disgusting. It was horrendously disgusting. And I was inside of it and it felt so gross, so disgusting, so heavy. And all of these things are gleefully just like feasting on it. And I'm actually able to see it way, way better than I ever have before. And they look scary. They don't look human, yes, but there was a quality to them that I'd never put two and two together before. They were desperately starving. Like to the point, like if you haven't eaten in like a week and a half and suddenly there's food in front of you, but it's behind like glass, like you're breaking through that. You're getting it. And it's that starving desperation that they were feeling. And I'm just sitting here like, oh my God, like that's the most disgusting thing I've ever felt in my life. And these guys are, they're eating it. And for the first time, I actually felt sorry for them. And I started going in and looking at all of this and I just I couldn't fight them anymore because it's the saddest existence that I've ever seen, but I still didn't know how to fix it. And that's when I felt like the sunlight breaking behind me. And it was like, I turned around and I looked and I was like, oh, it's so beautiful. And I go towards it so I can feel it. And then the same thing, it's like I fell into that light, boom, right back in another memory. And it was my friend Amanda back when I was like 14, 15, 16, right around that era. She had a birthday party and there was like 10, 15 of us over there and we were all smoking pot and watching some stupid Adam Sandler movie. I don't even remember what the movie was, but one person started laughing and then the other person laughed at how they were laughing and then that made them laugh. And it's like they caught it and then it started to spread. And the next thing you know, I almost broke a rib that night. My face hurt so bad the next morning. My abs, I was so sore. And like, I just couldn't get that shit-eating grin off my face. Like I was just, we don't even know what we were laughing about. But that feeling shone through. In my darkest moment, it shone through plain as day. And I was like, it's light. This is obviously light. And that is obviously shadow. And there's something that I am not seeing inside of this. I've only been making just the light without the feeling. Can I make that feeling? And so I pulled that light into myself, but I made it smile. I made it feel the same way that I felt it in that memory. And boom, immediately cleaned out that trauma inside of me. And I'm about this big, right inside of my solar plexus level, but I feel safe. I don't feel like I'm being crushed in, like I have to, stop it, and I feel gentle inside of it. And suddenly you've got millions of these things that are sitting there eating my trauma, and the trauma just disappeared. And they're like reaching through it. It's like they know something's there, but there's nothing for them to grab a hold of. And it was like this huge confusion moment for them. And I said to myself, well, if I can do that for the trauma, can I do that for them? And that was the first time I've ever actually truly transmuted something. And it's not about forcing it into the light. It's about simply showing it the resonance that it doesn't have access to. Because beings born of darkness, they only understand darkness. And if we look at darkness and we equate it to emotion, that's the path of fear. That's the path where fear leads to every single negative emotion that we don't enjoy, that feels physically uncomfortable inside of us. And light is the path of love that leads to every single emotion that feels vibrant and healing and cleansing and bubbling and opening and connected. And so that's when I started to truly recognize what was going on. Like, if you have a light shining, in order for there to be shadow, there has to be something in the way. Meaning that that thing in the shadow, it can't see. It has no idea what's on the other side. It can see the effects of the light on the outside, which appears like it's trying to kill it, but it has no idea. It has no clue. And so these things have never even felt anything even remotely close to like a, huh. You know, it's all numbness to pain, numbness to fear, and everything inside of that. And that's the only thing that they know. And yeah, sometimes they still fight, you know, you have to grab a hold of them and be like, hey, I'm not trying to kill you, man, just take that. You know, but what you do is you make that sensation, that beautiful emotion, that laughter, that joy, that excitement, and you light it up like a sun. And it's like you've just created something so beautiful and so clean and so pure, and then you freely give it. And sometimes you have to force them to freely take it, you know, but once they know, they never go back, because not even the dark guys want to stay inside of the dark. As soon as they feel that joy, like they're ecstatically joyful. It's like, are you kidding me? This is what I've been fighting. I am out. And that's what I do. And so I used to destroy things, and it was very pretty how I destroyed things, but it was still destruction. And I don't do that anymore. There's nothing to fight. There's only wounds that need healing. And sometimes those wounds make some really uncomfortable patterns and behaviors in reality that you have to physically make sure that you're safe from. But the base energy is always the same. Love is the only thing that can cure. Love is the only thing that can heal. And we can't do that by fighting the darkness inside of us. We can only do that by loving the darkness inside of us. And then the darkness stops being dark. It starts being light. And that's where the unleashing of natural humanity is.
Right? And that's how we raise everyone. Yeah, that's beautiful. All right, so if someone wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
You could go to unleashingnaturalhumanity.com, and if you scroll all the way down to the bottom on the homepage, it's got a contact form right there, or you can find me on Facebook, Eric Raines, ERICRAINES. I've got a pretty golden picture. Somebody took like an actual photo of mine, and then they drew it with the gold and made it amazing for me. So I've been using that as my profile picture for a while now.
Very cool photo. I love it. It's been such a joy speaking with you, Eric. Thank you so very much. I feel like, it's like, yes, you know, people need to know this and they need to be aware of it. And the more people who this reaches out to, even just that little spark, you know, can just open up so much. So I'm truly grateful for you. Thank you so much.
You are so very welcome. You know, and in conclusion, like there's a lot of brain information that we talked about here. But in conclusion, the bottom line is sit with yourself, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and try to make yourself feel good. And one of the easiest ways to do this is just by smiling. And as you smile, if you pull your breath through the filter of that smile and you feel that smile pulling into you, it'll feel good, or it won't. And if it doesn't feel good, those are the spaces where the wounds are. And it's not about fighting what hurts. It's about relaxing it to the point that it lets go. And once you let it go, you can start breathing that smile in, and it'll feel good. And you can start really taking your body back, holding compassion and love inside of yourself. And
for all the parts.
For all of it. And it's not brain information. You can't do this by thinking your way through it. You have to make the feeling happen. And we only get this with self-reflection. We only get this by sitting in silence with ourselves. And you can't do that if you're operating with, you know, modern society. Everything is always go, 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 go. Distraction, 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 distraction. So make time for yourself. Truly make time for yourself. And even if it's just 5 minutes a day, it's more than enough to start getting an edge into that door and, or foot into that door and start edging it open. Because as soon as you blow it wide open, you know, you might have to push on it 100 times, but each time that you push on it, it's cumulative. And so it's not that last time where it blows wide open that was the one that did it. It was every single effort that you used before that to get to that space, and make it a way of life. You know, just really pay attention to how you feel inside. And if you don't like the way that you feel, do something about it.
You have the power to change it.
100%. Like that.
I love it. I love it. Do it. You know, claim your sovereignty, claim yourself, know yourself. Yeah. And people should go to your website, definitely check it out. And you do offer services online. Video
so I actually just raised my prices and closed off a lot of my session times, because I'm trying to, I'm working a lot more on myself. I've been really just kind of overextended. And so I do have kind of that buffer and that gateway in the way. If you really, really want me to work with you, no problem, I'll still do that. However, I would much rather you guys go check out the foundation on my website. It's a workshop where I show you exactly how to get into the mind, body, spirit levels and activate light. And from there, incredible amounts of healing are possible. And you can go from there into the guided collection, which the guided meditations, I played all the music. I recorded it's all me. And those right there, you can go anywhere you want. The guided collection can show you exactly how to do anything that you need to know how to do. And it's pretty much the exact same thing as going through a session with me. So I would much rather prefer people do this on their own. I want to see you struggle. I want to see you lifting the heavy things to build those muscles. But if you truly want a session with me, I'm here too.
Oh, good. All right. Well, choices are always good.
Yeah.
Definitely choices are good. Thank you so very much, Eric. You are truly a gift to humanity. So I hope people, listen to this and know that, there are always options. It is possible. Please claim your sovereignty, people. Please. I'm like, please, for all of humanity, please claim your sovereignty. We can do this. We can heal. We can raise a vibration for everybody. So thank you so very much, Eric. I appreciate it. And I will definitely post your link in my YouTube channel and thank you.
This was a really fun interview. Thank you for
you're so awesome. And it's just so great. I've been following you on Facebook for a long time now, and I'm like, okay, I just do it. And so and I think that's what people just do it.
Just like do it.
But you do
nothing to it but to do it. And what's the worst that's going to happen? You get a no. So and that's it. You're not looking for no's, you're looking for yeses. And so it's like, okay, well, I'm going to keep looking for my yes.
Right.
That's all it is. Nothing to do but to do it.
Right. Bring the light. Well, all right. You have a beautiful weekend, and 9/11, I know, powerful time right now. So peace, love, light, authenticity, sovereignty. I love it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Much. All right. Talk to you soon. Mwah.